Good afternoon. It's just ticked over midday. We're going to welcome to those who have already joined our webinar today. We're just going to give it a few minutes to ensure that it affords those who are maybe finishing up previous meetings at the top of the hour that the extra few minutes to log in and join the session with us today. Whilst we are waiting to kick off, I might just share some housekeeping to make it a little bit easier for everyone. So firstly, you will notice that your microphones are not turned on. The reason for that is to help with just stability on the call. We're expecting a number of attendees, so that will help us with that stability. But you will have the opportunity to engage. There's a Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, so that will allow you to, throughout the webinar, to ask questions. We do have this fancy front stage and backstage call today, so we have a team that can answer those questions live in the moment, and if we don't get to your question, all questions will be answered. I will run through the agenda shortly, but there will be time at the end for live questions as well. And lastly, we will be recording this session. So within the next 24 hours or so, you'll receive a copy of this webinar. I think it will be available on our YouTube channel as well, the Convera YouTube channel. And lastly, there's another section there. I think it's called a resources section. Throughout this session, we'll be posting some links there that will, and some resource links that will help you follow along. Okay, so I actually don't know where to see how many attendees have joined the call. Can you see that at all, Scott or Aaron? In any case, we might
we've got 27 attendees, Andrew. So
okay, excellent. So we might just kick off. Okay, so welcome to our webinar today, from Insight to Action, Improving the Student Payment Experience. My name is Andrew Hannon. I am a director here at Convera, leading our education team across APAC. It's also a warm welcome and an introduction to Aaron Pendleton from our product team. Aaron's really the star of the show today. A lot of the content that we will share, Aaron will be participating and contributing to that. And we also have on the phone, on the call today, Scott Lennon, who leads our global customer care team. So we might start with just extending on that introduction. First to you, Aaron, just to introduce yourself to the team and just and to the audience and your role that you play here at Convera.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Andrew. Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Pendleton, and I am a senior product manager that supports our education vertical globally. And I've been with Convera going on about 4 years, and I'm really excited to show you guys our most recent research study and how our roadmap is impacted by that today.
Thanks, Erin. Scott?
Cool. Thanks, Andrew. Hi, everyone. My name's Scott Lennon. I've led the APAC customer care team for the last 5 years. And this year I've taken on the role also of leading the global education support team for Convera. It's an exciting time to be working in this role and working with the product team to implement some of these changes they're doing in this space. So I look forward to sharing some of those insights with you later today.
Okay, so let's kick things off. I'll just stay on this screen for the moment. So just the agenda for our webinar today. We expect the call, the content to go for around 25 to 30 minutes or so. There will be some time at the end, as I mentioned, for some questions that we will read out and we can respond to. So again, feel free to ask those questions using the Q&A throughout the session. There's 3 main topics that we'll cover off. Shortly, I'll briefly provide an update on our journey, our organizational journey, and what we've been up to, and how things have progressed over the past 12 months or so. Next, as I mentioned, Erin will be introduced to the call, and she'll talk through the outputs from our recent round of student research and explain how that's informing our exciting product roadmap for 2024. And then lastly, Scott will come back to the call, and he'll just share how we're helping students resolve queries more quickly than ever. So that's the three main topics we'll cover off. So as I mentioned, just briefly from a organizational update perspective, you may have heard from our CEO, Patrick Gauthier, via our social channels, some of the interviews that he's had recently with press, or directly from the key account managers that look after your account, that, you know, the major news from the past 12 months, it was mainly the midpoint of 2023, was the finalisation of the acquisition of Western Union Business Solutions. So this was a big undertaking. In this region in APAC, it was a relatively, we were one of the first regions to come under the umbrella of Convera, but our colleagues in Europe, it did take some time to finalise that acquisition. So that was a huge milestone for us that happened at sort of the midway point of 2023. The next sort of strategic pillar and the important next step thereafter was the decision to migrate Convera over to the cloud. So it was an important strategic decision that allows us to leverage Amazon Web Services infrastructure, and it really helps to accelerate now the rebuild and modernization of our products and systems. And so Erin's going to touch on a little bit of that throughout the presentation. So they were two big items for 2023, and whilst they were going on, you know, we had the job of continuing to focus on our customers and give them the best attention and service as possible, our existing customers, and obviously welcome new customers to Convera. So we were pleased that 2023 was a record year for us, and we've now grown to a business that on any given day processes $1 billion in turnover. So that's a brief update on the key milestones of sort of what's happened over the 12 months. But we're really excited now with that sort of behind us that we can really start to accelerate our product development. So we'll get into that now with Erin. So maybe Erin, you can start with sharing some insights of the recent research that you undertook, the student interviews that you undertook, and the outcomes of that.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Andrew. All right, so in Q4 of 2023, I got to spend some time speaking with students from across the globe, some of which even attend universities that are represented on our call today. And my plan for today is to step through our research process. I'm going to share our key findings, and then I'm going to round this out by highlighting how our roadmap considered these insights for 2024. So Angie, you can go next. Perfect, thanks. Okay, so before we get into the findings, I want to quickly just review the core objectives of our research. And to add some context, each student that we interviewed at one point has used Global Pay for Students, and then subsequently raised an inquiry to our support team. So while speaking to these students, our aim was to first and foremost understand the issue that they raised that led them to raising that inquiry. And then we wanted to dive a bit deeper and just understand what pain points these students are experiencing with just international payments overall. And then on the other side of the coin, we wanted to look at our current payment journey and verify the way it currently works with a focus on our receipt pages, payment tracking, and our FAQs. And then last, we wanted to test some new designs to inform our future roadmap. So that included looking at some prototypes and new screens with students so that we can make sure that we're focusing on user experience and design in our 2024 roadmap. Okay, so over the next 2 slides, we're going to jump into methodology and approach. But as I mentioned, we had the opportunity to speak to students from around the world, and we wanted to ensure that we spoke to a sample that was reflective of the largest outbound student markets. Every single student that we spoke to brought a different viewpoint to the table and really allowed us to dial into larger trends across payments overall, but also start to hone in on local trends that are specific to payer countries. All right, now you go next. Okay, so shifting gears to talk about our approach. As I mentioned, we engaged participants using the data that we had on hand, those students who had raised an inquiry before. And we pulled students directly from our data. So we had them organized into 3 cohorts. We had payment status, refund status, and payment instructions. And this segmentation was really important to us because in addition to making the interview pool reflective of outbound student markets, we also wanted to make sure that we are focusing on the top type of inquiries that are raised to Convera today, with those 3 being the top. And our interview approach included guided question answer, which we baselined across all of our participants. And then we drilled into specific areas of focus around their original inquiry that fell into one of those cohorts listed there on the screen. And then with all participants, we did design, review, and verification of those existing pages, including our payment tracking and payment instructions, just to name a few. And then we were able to show the students those net new designs, so nobody else had seen them before, different designs of our landing page and payer journey so that we could gather their feedback. And last, although we think it's fun in this industry to give free solicited feedback, we did compensate each of these students for their time that they spent with us. Okay, so now we're going to get into the actual findings over the next 3 slides. After completing these interviews and we synthesized all the data, there were 3 key themes that emerged where we believe to be areas of improvement for Convera. The first one is clarity and transparency. And I'm sure a lot of us on this call today spend a lot of time thinking about international payments, but Susandesh from University of Manchester was a first-time payer, and when he received his payment instructions, he was caught up on some of the jargon that we use today, and he couldn't explain next step to his parents, who were also first-time international payers. So ultimately, when he took his payment instructions to his bank, they did help him, but we did notice an opportunity to provide more detail and arm students and their families with the information they need to complete a payment with confidence. And as part of that, we've already begun the redesign of our payment instructions. Other areas we tested were the payment statuses and just the general understanding of the payment process. So again, some of the payment statuses we tested were not clear to the students. And in the case of Susandesh, as the first-time payer, he did mention that he would have benefited from just more resources on our FAQ page or landing page that would have walked him through the payment journey for a wire payment. And all of this feedback has been incorporated into our roadmap for 2024. All right, you can go next. All right, the next theme that emerged was around support. And I'd say this was the strongest feedback that we got. There was a really strong preference that emerged for live agent chat as a preferred mode of interaction with our support team. Anuya from University of Alberta saw a great benefit in having her questions solved in real time as she was completing her payment. And the same sentiment was felt by over 90% of participants. So live agent chat has become a key feature for our 2024 roadmap. And then last is discoverability. And what this encompasses is students' ability to find the answer to their question without reaching out to our support team directly. And so we spent a really good chunk of time during Giselle's interview from Green Templeton College, getting her honest feedback on how she prefers to navigate pages, especially when you're searching for a specific answer. We actually had her navigate our current FAQ page and then showed her some new designs. And her feedback has directly impacted our new FAQ design for 2024, which is already underway in design. And I look forward to actually reaching back out to her shortly to get her feedback on what our new design is shaping up to look like. And then last, student accounts. Our line of questioning, we ask students if they're willing to create an account at checkout, and most see this as a standard step with any purchasing process today. One student mentioned that their inbox is overcrowded, it's a bit of a mess. It'd be way easier for them to go to one central place to see the status of their payment, look at all of their historical payments. And this helped inform an already built assumption that we had, that there are a lot of benefits for student accounts. Okay, that wraps up the overview with our
Thank you.
findings, Andrew.
Thank you for that, Erin. So yeah, I think where we wanted to go now is just to go through some of the key takeaways from the research that you undertook. So the first question from me is just around your biggest learning that you'd like to share with the audience today from the work that you did.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a really good question. Outside of just genuinely enjoying the time I got to spend with all of these students, my biggest takeaway was how important context is throughout the user journey as students make their payment. As a product team, we need to continually be challenging our assumptions on how users navigate the international payment process so we can make sure that it's frictionless. And I think our initial assumptions was that less is more when it comes to the information that we're arming students with on our page and throughout the payer journey. But in fact, a lot of the feedback that we got was more would actually be preferred so that they really feel like they understand the process of their payment and what happens next after they complete their payment.
Right. I think in some of your previous response, you said you're looking forward to following up with some of these students. So can you share what the plan is around further research that the product team is looking to undertake?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're always going to be doing continuous user research, especially with students. It's super critical for informing our blind spots and our biases, as I mentioned. And there's really no way for us to continue to build great products than by talking with students. And we've done user research in the past, but this research was a bit different in terms of scale, just the number of students that we interviewed, quantitative and qualitative aspects, such as the number of questions that we asked, the actual time we spent with them. Each student interview was 60 minutes, just as well as the depth, meaning the diversity of the questions that we are asking them. And we're going to continue to test new designs, engage with students in research so we can stay attuned to their evolving needs and just how continue to, again, test those assumptions that we make as we're building products.
Excellent. I think where we'll move now is into the product roadmap discussion. It's normally when you're out in front of customers, they sort of seem to sit up in their chairs and take a little bit more notice because this is the more of the exciting topic to hear about. So can you share with us, now that we've performed this first round of research, what the team has gleaned from that and how that's going to inform our product roadmap?
Of course, yeah. So let's get started. First, I want to just give a little bit of context on the way we're going to be presenting this. So we're going to go through this as now, next, later. Now includes the features that we've already delivered this year or they're currently in development. Next is going to be the features we're working on, as well as some that we're yet to pick up. And then later is likely Q4 and beyond. But for some of those features, we've already started doing the requirements gathering and the research to help understand what that's going to shape up to look like. And also just one other thing, I know Andrew mentioned this at the top of the call, but we will be providing all of these slides to you and you will get a copy of this roadmap as part of that. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's walk through these. The first one that we have, I think, is one of our more exciting developments as of recent, and this is our embedded payment solution, including white labeling. So to put this into context, we know how important embedded payment solutions are just across the payments industry in general. And our solution is a small micro front end, or some people like to call it a widget, that you would embed directly within your own website so that your students can complete their payment without ever leaving your website and being redirected to students.convera.com. And we mentioned the white labeling bit here because it really is something that can become native within your website. You can change the fonts, the colors, and it should, in essence, it's something that should become invisible. It's part of your website, the payment process to check out. And we'll show you a sneak peek of what that looks like on a slide in a few. The next item that we have here is new currency payout option for US loans. So this is pertinent to any clients that may use our US loan product, but essentially what we have done is now with those US loans that are paid out to the university, you can now refund any of the amount left over after you take your fees back to the student in USD, either by wire or draft, whereas previously that wasn't possible. And this makes a lot of sense for students because since these are US loans, and thought a lot of these students probably have a USD bank account. The next item we have here is student inquiry tracking. And this is an enhancement to our existing web form that you're probably familiar with. And this is going to allow students when they're actually raising an inquiry, when they put in their payment reference, we're going to be dynamically looking up to see if they've already raised an inquiry before. And our goal is to give them the information they need to actually go back to the original inquiry as to not raise duplicates, because it's going to allow our team to actually triage and answer those questions a lot quicker. And then the FAQ page redesign, I already touched on that, but we are totally reinventing our FAQ page. And the payment instruction redesign, this is already underway. And I hope to have this live here shortly in a few weeks. And this is hopefully going to make it a lot easier for payers like Susandesh to navigate the instructions on how to actually complete your payment. All right, you can go next, Andrew. All right, so next, the one that we have at the top here is payment and refund tracking enhancements. This is twofold. A bit of it is related to our UI and part of it is related to statuses. We are constantly working on payment and refund tracking because 50% of the inquiries we get today are related to tracking. And we think this enhancement is a really big one because a lot of the time we've seen students reaching out to understand the status of their payment when it is in fact being reviewed by our compliance team. It's a very standard step within the intake before we actually send the money to the university. But we didn't have the visibility for the student to actually know that with our current payment tracker. So we're creating some new statuses that's going to let them know, hey, we have your funds. Don't worry, they're not lost somewhere out there in the banking network. We're just doing a few compliance checks on our end, and then we will be sending them on to your university. And along with that, we're also going to be updating the UI so that it will be more comprehensive and showing them where their payment started and all the steps left until it actually reaches the university. And that actually moves into the second item here on the list, which is additional real-time callback statuses for compliance updates. So those compliance statuses I was mentioning, if you currently have real-time callbacks set up, you can now subscribe to these and use them in your own reporting as needed. The next one we have here is new embedded payment tracking widget. So all of the items above kind of lead into this microservice that we are planning to create. And this kind of falls into that ecosystem that we are working towards, which is small widgets that our clients can then use or universities can use to embed within their own website so that the experience is more native for their users. For the payment tracking widget in specific, this is going to allow you to put our payment tracker, which is currently hosted on our site, within your site with one single line of code. And then your students or payers can track their payment directly within your website without being redirected. Next, we have live agent chat. And I won't talk too much about that because I think that's somewhat self-explanatory. Oh, sorry, I just got a credential thing. That was weird. But that's going to allow students to interact with our support team via chat rather than over the phone or via our inquiry form. We're still going to support those other methods, but this will be net new. We are also going to be looking at our GPFS landing page UI UX refresh. So we're going to be, based on the research that we did, a lot of the feedback that we got from students was that we could add a lot more context about the payment journey. We could be breaking down the various steps depending on what type of payment method they chose and to how the funds actually reach their institution. And so that landing page refresh is considering all of that feedback. The multi-channel engagement with Convera.com. This is going to be a cross collaboration with another internal team here that supports our Convera.com website. we've come to know that there are around 45% of traffic that hits the Convera.com site is actually redirecting to students.convera.com, which is our Global Pay for Students website. And now that we know that, we feel there's a really big opportunity to get ahead of questions. So we're going to be hosting our FAQs over there. We're also going to be embedding our payment module over there so that students can actually make a payment directly from that site. And for payment limit increase for Indian students to 25K, this is a really big development for us. But we are now going to increase the transaction limit for a single payment for students from India to 25K to hopefully allow them to pay their full tuition or fee bill in one step without multiple payments. And then last, optimize Klarna security. We are implementing Klarna as a payment type overall, but there are some really great security benefits that we get from this new integration that allow the user to log into their bank account. There's going to be increased security with authentication of setting up that account and then TFA when making the payment. And for those that don't know, Klarna is a very popular payment method in Europe for payers who are paying in GBP, Euro, and Swiss franc. And later, the first item that we have here is new student account with login. So drawing directly from that feedback from students that they are willing and would like to actually have a student account, we are already well underway with the design and requirements gathering for the student accounts and how this is going to work with the login. We actually just went to India a couple months back and worked with our development teams, and we're really excited about this feature. We think it's going to bring a lot of benefits to the students. And that directly actually parlays into the next feature that we have here, which is recurring credit and debit card payments. In order to actually support recurring credit and debit card payments, we have to have that student account so the student can actually set up their schedule for their payment. And the third item we have is new embedded help center widget. So sticking to that theme of the ecosystem of different widgets that you can plug and play, this is going to be the widget that actually houses our help center, which currently is our contact us page. And this would allow you to embed that directly into your site so that your students can get in touch with us without being redirected to Global Pay for Students. And then the last two items here are related to network, which we never actually put our tools down on. It's something we focus on all year round. American Express as a payment option is what we are looking into to implement after hearing a lot of requests from it, actually from our university clients. And then Nigeria, NGN, this is going to be a bank transfer option. And we do currently have a payment option live that we've been piloting, but some of you may know that it's really difficult to actually get Naira out of Nigeria. And so we're actually looking into another method for bank transfer that we are really optimistic about. And we're looking forward to bringing that forward so that we can help students from Nigeria pay their tuition in full and on time. And that rounds out the roadmap.
Hey, thanks for sharing that, Erin, what we've got sort of now, next and later. I just wanted to take the time to maybe double click into especially the embedded payment solution. It's something that the entire team here is really excited about to share with our customers. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've covered this a bit on the previous slides about the solution, but to put this into more tangible context, you can see on this slide here, this is a mock uni site where a solution fits directly into your website. Again, the Convera embedded payment solution is going to enable partners, institutions, marketplaces to embed Global Pay for Students within their own web page so students can complete their payment without ever being redirected to an external website. And it's really easy to implement. And that was one thing that was really important for us. It is one line of code to integrate into your institution's website. So very little IT resources are required to support it for your students to make payments. And your students are still going to get all of the same benefits that they would with the hosted page or redirect. All of our payment options are still available through our embedded payment solution that we support today. And we're currently in pilot with a partner. So this functionality, we have released it, and we are now working to validate it even further with a pilot partner right now. We expect to wrap that up in May, and then we'll be looking to scale this more widely across our entire client base. And really quickly, just to answer a typical fast follow question we get whenever we talk about our embedded solution, there will be no additional PCI responsibility or obligations on yourselves from what you already have today. Our provider owns the card data and it's input directly into their system. We are not touching this data. And when it enters their system, it's going directly into our acquirer's PCI container. So in short, we don't expect any changes to how individual universities are managing their PCI compliance, noting that, of course, it varies by school.
Thanks, Aaron. Just another item to explore further is, I know from a student inquiry perspective, we moved away from email and we're now using a web services form. So just, for the audience, just the motivation behind that and the reason why we went down that path.
Yeah, of course. So as most of you know by now, Convera is undergoing a major reimagination and rebuilding all of its operating systems. So not only are we upgrading our infrastructure and our technology solutions, as Andrew mentioned at the top of the call, but we're also reimagining how we service all of our customers and product users, which includes students as well. And as part of this, Convera has now built its own proprietary internal inquiry management system, where various products, including Global Pay for Students, simply feeds information into it. And as part of our modernization program, it was an easy and organic decision to develop a smart inquiry intake form for Global Pay for Students to enable students to raise inquiries. And this has been live since August of 2023, so likely you've seen this before. And it's awesome because now we have access to all this data that we didn't have before, and it lets us dig into student experience in new ways and create large research studies like the one that we covered today. And now all the information the student shares is automatically organized and available to our global student support team, which is going to enable them to respond and resolve queries more efficiently than ever, which Scott will share more on next.
Excellent. Thank you, Aaron. You've covered off a lot there, so thanks for your participation today. I think you might have, I think we might come back to you just before we end the call. But Scott, welcome. Wanted to move on to your area of focus. So again, Scott leads our student support team globally. So it'd be great to hear from you, Scott, on some of the early wins around, the changes that we've made around, the positive impacts of our student inquiries and how we're responding to them.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Andy, and I'd love to share. And thanks, Aaron, for some good overview there. So what I'd say is the main benefit we've seen is the inquiry form now captures the full details up front, allowing the student support team to actually work on the query straight away and provide like a first-time resolution for the student. Previously, when we were using Outlook, we wouldn't always get the information. It wouldn't include the payment reference. It wouldn't include the refund reference that we needed. So more often than not, we'd have to go back to the student to request further information. So it created a to and fro back before we were able to answer their question. Now that the fields are mandated when they're raising the query, this allows the student support team to answer the query straight away and work on it. And since the launch of the student inquiry form, the first-time resolution rate has increased significantly to the tune of 35%. So that's been a big win for our team. Along with that, our platform now captures the history and all previous communication and attachments to the customer or from the student. So this allows us to really see what they've queried about beforehand and allows us to make informed decisions and answer them more effectively. What this has done, this has ensured that the number of exchanges between us and the student has reduced by 50% since this has been put in place. So these two things have made a really big change into the number of times we talk to the student and how quickly we can respond to them. Another great feature we have is the automatic follow-up of emails. So this is a really efficient way to remind the students when there's anything outstanding and we're expecting some more information from them. So now the emails are automated. This frees up the resource of my team to allow them to focus on new and ongoing queries that have been responded to and to help us to keep the pace with the growth of the business that we've seen coming through. And then lastly, as Erin mentioned before, the data available is so much richer than it was previously. So this allows my team to see and sort of look at where our queries are coming from, what's causing them, and then work with the product team to sort of solution and to make sure that we target these in the future to reduce the number of queries and make a better student experience.
Right, thanks for sharing that, Scott, and those results, those early signs there. Okay, so I think that pretty much brings us close to the end. But just before we get to some questions, I know this is the first time in some time that we have engaged our customers in this type of form, a webinar, to provide some updates. So, Erin, maybe a question for you just on, is this something that we are looking to do more on a more regular basis? So I suppose when's the next round of webinars?
Yeah, definitely. So we've given you a sneak peek of the embedded payment solution experience today. So our next webinar is going to focus fully on this. And we're really looking forward to sharing the output of our pilot that is currently underway with our partner in Australia. So keep an eye out for this invite, likely in 2 to 3 months. And yeah, Andrew, anything else you'd like to mention about our current pilot?
Well, it's exciting that the pilot is on our doorstep. The pilot customer's on our doorstep here. I'm from Melbourne. It's a Melbourne customer. We will be announcing, making some announcements on that shortly. I think the next forum like this, the partner will be involved, and we can, get into some more detail around that, about the experience and how we think it's going to help all of the education providers. So I might just keep that up our sleeve for the time being, and we look forward to making some more announcements around that in the coming weeks. But yeah, now it's just an opportunity to take some questions if there are any from the audience. Admittedly, I haven't opened the Q&A throughout this time, so I've just opened it up now. If there's not any questions, that's obviously fine. We've got our key account managers that are always available to ask questions, and we can obviously attend to those in a prompt manner. So I'll just give it a few moments. I don't know whether we've had any throughout the session or there's any questions at the moment. It's fortunate that you don't have to jump on the microphone to ask. You can just type away if you needed to. Whilst we're waiting for any of those to come through, I'll just share the screen again, the presentation, because if it's not too much trouble to ask, I would hope that we're able to just grab your phones and scan the QR code on the screen. We would love to hear your feedback. Like I said, it's the first time in some time that we've presented in this forum, and it would be great to know whether we're hitting the mark, whether the content that we shared today was relevant, and so any feedback, we appreciate your candid your feedback on the session that we had today. So I'll just hopefully everyone's had their phones out and scanned that, if that's okay. I'll now stop sharing the screen just to see if there's any other questions before we wrap up the call. Okay. All right, so we have been going for 40 minutes. I think I said at the top there would be 30 minutes plus sort of questions. So we might just leave it there. I wanted to thank Scott and Erin for their participation today. It was great to hear from you both about what we have been up to and what there is to look forward to. So again, the subject today was from insight to action, improving the student payment experience. So we look forward to our next session with you, and seeing you out in the field, out face to face. So thanks for your time, and we'll be in touch again shortly. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you all.